This feels weird to say, but I hope you got an ad on this video. There's one thing I refuse to do in my videos. I refuse to use that dumbed down TikTok babyified word thing. I'm not gonna say unalived or pew pew for a gun. I'm not doing that. Mainly, I'm a grown-ass man. I would die of embarrassment if I had to unironically say that. As well, I think it's a little weird if I'm covering like a grimdark subject and I like self-censor those words. Imagine how lame it would be to talk about Warhammer and be like, and then the Space Marine unalived the Eldar? What are we doing here? So I bring this all up because of the subject for today. I can't get around it. I'm gonna do my best to keep this video green, but I'm talking about the Cult of Ecstasy, sex mages. I'm talking about sex mages. Though I will die on the hill that this is a complete oversimplification of what the Cult of Ecstasy is. It's what they're most often called and referred to. However, it's not all sex. Is sex involved? Yeah. Is it involved a lot? Yeah. But they have more. They have more stuff going on. The Cult of Ecstasy sit on the seat of time for the 9 mystic traditions. Time is a funny one for them, and as such, it's not the easiest to actually track their history. In maybe controversial opinion, I personally don't think their timeline history of their development as a group matters. I don't think it matters. That is from the source books I read on the Cult of Ecstasy and like the characters' own words. They don't personally believe that their history matters. I think the Verbena and the Cult of Ecstasy share a lot in common. I mean, funnily enough, in my Verbena video I mentioned, they claim to be the origin of the Cult of Ecstasy. But they have really similar concepts. But unlike the Verbena, the Cult of Ecstasy don't have a history of getting their shit kicked in constantly. They just have a history of, aw man, we love divine ecstasy and madness. Ah, damn, the church is a bit on our ass. Obviously, the Celestial Chorus weren't big fans of them. I believe the part that really matters for the Cult of Ecstasy is who they are and what they believe. A main key facet, their entire worldview, their entire paradigm, is around the idea of changing your perspective. Your perspective as a human is limited, so you do things to expand it. Largely, this is done through ecstasy, hence the name. This isn't just like pure pleasure, it is like pleasure, pain, divine worship, just getting super into something. That feeling you get when you get like lost in a thing. Say you're at a really dope concert and you just get taken by the crowd. They're doing a great job, they're hyping everyone up, everyone's going crazy, you're moshing the hell out of there. That is a form of ecstasy. And this has been a tradition for a long time. The actual like history timeline of the Cult of Ecstasy really just follows how human history has had elements of this throughout many different practices, religions, rituals. To explain this, I think I'm just going to explain 2 of the really big influences on the Cult of Ecstasy from our real world. The really big, obvious one is the Cult of Dionysus. Dionysus had a lot of mystery cults in ancient Greece, and when I say cult, I don't mean it in the same way of like a Jonestown, Heaven's Gate, like that type of cult. Cult in Greek is a Greek word, really comes from just a gathering of people worshiping. The Cult of Dionysus was really into that divine ecstasy. It's the idea that you are doing something, you're experiencing this euphoria, you are ascending yourself to a divine level as you're, a lot of times, you're partying. Other times, it's a lot of divine madness. That is an aspect of Dionysus as a god, who is a very confusing god. You actually track the history of this man. Ways you can reach this are really vigorous ritual dance, really intense music, sex, obviously, drinking copiously, eating good food. There's actually a big thing, a big misconception that the Cult of Dionysus was literally just a bunch of orgies. Another Greek term, but honestly it wasn't. And as well, the Cult of Dionysus as like a thing isn't a central church practice kind of deal. It is actually a wide-ranging amount of practices over a long period of time in many different locations. There's a good book, actually. It's a little dated, but it's actually good in explaining what the Cult of Dionysus is all about. So forgive my vast oversimplification here. It isn't just Greek influence though. There's also Indian influence, as there is the Tantra. This is a practice that's done in like Hinduism, Buddhism. It's a long-standing practice. If you've heard of the Kama Sutra, it's on that line. Basically, the concept is through practice of exercise, yoga, really good food, really good parties, sex is involved. You are creating a link to the gods. A god will be like, damn, they're having a good time. I'm gonna like check that out. And you kind of link in that moment. Basically, as a human being, you're praising a god in some way in these practices, and then a god is like, I'm gonna bless you later. It is actually a really interesting practice. I am super into like mysticism and religious history. My weak spot is Eastern religion and Eastern mystical practices. I need to read more into this. I actually learned about this from this video. And there are a lot more influences too, as there are so many practices that have just moments where you're taken in by a ritual, dance, and performance. A lot of rituals that involved hallucinogens. Basically, if you can track that throughout history of our world, the Cult of Ecstasy history is just, yep, I was there. It's actually funny. In like one of the tradition books for the revised edition, this is literally told in character by an ecstasy mage making this dude hallucinate through time with incense. And it is like just showing all of these kind of practices and being like, yeah, we were there. We did that shit. Basically, the Cult of Ecstasy believes underneath the world, this underlying current is reality. Quintessence as well. This magic underlying of just what reality actually is. It is something our mind, our senses blocks out, because if you saw it, you would go insane. It is just primal beauty and terror. It's just an indescribable thing you are looking at. To get glimpses of it, you have to expand your mind. And there's a lot of ways you can do this. The three main ways that are really mentioned with the Cult of Ecstasy is sex. You get that post-nut clarity. You drop some acid with like drugs. So it is interesting, the Cult of Ecstasy has their own internal ranking system of drugs, because they have some where they're like, that's a good one. That's a starter one. You should maybe start with that. And then some that are like, this is just bad. Don't do this. You get nothing out of it. It just, I don't know, you take a fat bong rip and then you see reality in front of you. And then music. Music is a big aspect of them as well. So quite literally, the Cult of Ecstasy is sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Which is funny, because the 60s and 70s were like their heyday with like the hippie movement. They had a great time, and then it ended like really hard, and they were like, fuck, no one wants to just drop acid in the desert anymore, damn it. The actual seeing of reality itself is called Lakashim, and it is the most important thing for an ecstasy mage. They will do anything to see it. Even if they've seen it once, they need to see it again. It is something they must do. Though it isn't all LSD and rainbows, because the Cult of Ecstasy is noted by other mages of being one of the most dangerous types, because they're unpredictable and not great with boundaries. The Cult of Ecstasy really likes to hang around with sleepers. They're a big fan of hanging out with mortals, and especially helping mortals reach that awakened state. They want you, if you're ready, willing, and able, to see what reality actually is, and they'll help you do that by partying. So they like having a lot of influence around people, and also it's fun to sue them. To get around this, because it can get bad real fast, they have like a literal 10 commandments of like the code of Ananda, which I'm not gonna full go through all 10 of them. Essentially, it is really taboo to force another person to go through this like altered perception. If someone doesn't want to trip balls with you, don't spike their drink. Some people aren't ready to awaken, some people like being asleep, and you've got to get their consent first. As well, don't warp these practices, don't warp this into just pain for pain's sake. That is a very evil act, to warp this, what should be a very divine experience, into something bad. Which is a reason they have a list of do not do these drugs. And it is important because, remember, this is the world of darkness. And as much as we have these codes, and there's a lot of groups in WoD that are very noted to be good and have good intentions, there's individuals who are definitely not. There are definitely Cult of Ecstasy mages who are like, whatever. Life's for the living, consent just gets in the way. And that makes them bad and dangerous, obviously. Though the actual tradition will crack down on you very hard for breaking these rules. They do all this without even having like a super rigid structure. They're honestly really loose. The only thing they care about is following the code. Though it did take quite a bit of work to get there. This is the one bit of like real history of the tradition I'm going to get into, because it rules and is important. Because the Cult of Ecstasy, the original form, was known as the Seers of Kronos. Greek inspired, obviously. They were led by a dude, like at the time, around the 1400s, by a dude named Shazar. Now, Shazar is an absolute legend. Just get in the comments. Everyone give a hell yeah to Shazar right now. He's so sick. Because Shazar, obviously, they have the power of time, which we'll get into in a second. He actually foresaw the technocracy being a thing. He saw that the Order of Reason was literally starting. And he's like, this is bad. This is really bad, actually. So he got off his ass, and told every mage he knew, all the big masters of magic. He's like, we need to get together and do something. This is, oh no. It took him effort to get all these people to agree, because mages don't like working together. After a lot of debate, they formed the Council of the Nine Mystic Traditions. Shazar's the guy that made that happen. He wasn't the leader of it, because he just got on the seat of time. Obviously, Seers of Kronos, who knew? The big reason he got the council to do this anyways is because he also realized the mages aren't going to do this themselves. They aren't going to just be left alone, and they're not going to deal with this really real threat I just saw in the future. He accumulated a lot of political power, so he could force all of these people to do the right thing. He didn't like the idea. He doesn't like the idea of manipulating and using this political might as threats, basically, but he did what had to be done. Then, right after, he went back to his boys. He did a lot more debate, because he realized his own tradition could do a lot of bad, and they needed to stand tall in front of the technocracy. So he created the Code of Ananda. Absolute legend. He's so sick. I think it's fair if you read a lot of the lore for the Cult of Ecstasy and saw that they had time as their sphere. You're like, what? Why time? Honestly, that's not the one I'd immediately think. I would think maybe correspondence or life. It's a lot of traditions of like mediums seeing the future, literal like crystal balls, scrying in a pool, things like that. And I think this sounds like it doesn't fully track with the ecstasy thing, but I've found some really fun explanations of it, and I think it does track still though. Like my gut is like, I feel like they should have life magic, maybe something. It is because they are mages that are all about your perspective, and time is a perspective. Granted, it's really hard to go back. You can look back in time, that's easier. And World of Darkness is really hard to travel backwards in time, and even worse to change it, because that is always explicitly vulgar magic. So Paradox doesn't like it, but a good way of explaining it is this time magic is basically you are expanding your perception to even transcend time. You are able to see something before it happens, which gives you the context of what you can do in the now. Like quite literally, let's say you hit a bong rip and you realize, ah, damn, this guy who's going to attack me, he has a gun in his right pocket. Now I can utilize this with another magic sphere to alter the event that will come forward. And obviously, because it's time magic gets really fucky real fast. Because besides, just seeing in time, you can also like rewind yourself. You can put something into the future. There's elements you can do. If you get to dot 5, which is the crazy dots that you get to, max magic, it references, you just become Doctor Who. It's literally like the Doctor Who effect. You exist outside of time. Have fun figuring that out, GM. Enjoy. The real power is when you meld it with other things. Because, for example, you meld time with correspondence. Now you can just alter something a different way. Maybe you can move like a tornado to another state. Or, uh-oh, I used my time magic and forces and I just shunted a fireball 10 minutes from now. Sucks. Parry that, idiot. I think the Cult of Ecstasy is very cool. If I had to play them, I would probably be going all in on the drug part because, I guess, fun fact for me, I'm not gonna roleplay out sex with my friends. I'm really uncomfortable with like romance or anything even remotely like that in my tabletop game because I'm talking to a friend of mine and I don't see them that way, and that's weird. But time is fun. Time is fun. I haven't seen time rules since I played Anima Beyond Fantasy. A very good game. Such a good game. But it also has insane magic on time to where the limiting factor in Anima for doing too much with time is that there is a organization in space that tracks this, known as like the Illuminati, and they will kill you. You do too many time crimes and a fucking Terminator's coming after you. But anyways, that is it. That's going to be about the Cult of Ecstasy. And first, I want to shout out my channel members who make all these videos possible. Thank you so much. And I want to give a huge shout out to my top tier channel members. That being Lucky Finds 23, Porkchomp, and Czar Shadow. Thank y'all so much. It means a lot. Yeah, other than that, like, comment, subscribe, share, I don't know, do whatever you want, YouTube stuff. See ya.